Okay, so we'll go ahead and start this meeting of the Economic Development Committee. And do we need to do a roll call, or is Angela there? Or?
Yeah, this is Casey. I'm covering for Angie today. I can do a roll call.
Okay, you want to do a roll call, please?
Sure. Groneman,
Here.
Mulvaney Henry,
Here.
Haley.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So where do we want to start? You want to make a presentation on each one, or I guess we have the agenda that Patrice.
Can you see the agenda, everybody?
Yes.
Okay,
No.
Yes.
all right, Patrice.
Okay, we just have two EDF proposals, one from Wildlife and the other one from Cottage at Village West. And I have, everybody should have a copy of it. And so there, we'll start with the Wildlife's first. And they're making a request for, no, they're making a request for $300,000. But if you look at the general manager's recommendation and based on just the project itself and the payback, we're recommending award between 200 and 250,000. And this is to support their base. This was based upon the calculation rate of return. I'm sorry, I am hoarse. So if you have any questions on this particular project, it's a senior living project that's located on 900 North 8th Street, you know, so the old YMCA building. So they renovated it and it's now a senior living facility.
This request actually came in before COVID.
Yeah, it did.
They want to give some.
Well, it came in before COVID, and then with COVID and everything happening, then they pulled it back or they stopped working on it at the time. So they resubmitted it at the beginning of this year. So that's kind of what happened with this project.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Yeah.
So is this project complete?
Yes, pretty much complete.
Okay, thank you.
Are people?
Are there occupants? Not sure how many occupants in there yet. Or if they have them. I'm sorry.
This is David. So how many units, or is there an anticipated beyond the hookup or the reimbursement cost when we might capture or realize, you know, what the capital investment or our forbearance would be?
Wasn't the ROI 20 years in the proposal that y'all sent us?
The three.
I thought I read where this, I didn't understand it, but I thought I read where the payback would be 4.3 years.
Yes.
But in there,
It's in the general manager's recommendation on page 4. That pretty much kind of
It's on page 9.
summarized.
On page 9 as well.
Okay, and on 9, but if you look at page 4, it kind of breaks it down, and then as well as on 9.
now they stated that they felt that the BPU would get $500,000 in fees over the next 20 years. And I didn't understand how that would equate to a 4.3 year payback. Can you explain
that? Was my very question. Thank you. Tom, thank you, Mr. Groneman. That was my very question, is the reconciliation as between both figures that I saw.
Thank you, because I also was confused.
Where's the 500,000? Where's the 500,000?
It's the 500,000. Yeah.
Tom, can you repeat that again?
I don't know.
Okay, in their presentation, they said that they thought that they would generate 500,000 in fees for the BPU over the next 20 years. And I was wondering how that 500,000 would equate to a 4.3 year return. or payout.
I don't know that I've seen that presentation.
What page are you looking at? Are you referring to?
Let me get to it.
It's right here.
The second to
Yes.
last page of their letter. So it's page 14 of 38 of the
Talking about their
PDF.
letter.
14, okay.
Oh, there.
She must have something else. Oh, you got the whole thing? Okay.
Yeah, it's the last bullet.
On their application. It's under the application section.
Looks like there's gonna be a total of 44 units. According to the website.
Based on project operating expense. Well, they just talk about on their project operating expense, I guess that's the number that they came up with based on, they felt their expenses and things. But that's not, I mean, that's what the developer is stating, but we basically run our own numbers. I can't tell you where they got that number from. I can ask.
I was, you'd shown figures in your estimations that it'd be 4.3 years. And it just, with what they showed there, it just didn't add up. So I was just curious as to whether their figures, what they were basing their figures on.
And I don't either. Some developers, I don't know where they get their numbers from, but we basically, run our numbers internally based on what we figure we're gonna give the project. And that's how we come up with.
So let me ask this, and I'm still looking for that. A letter, okay.
Yeah, I am too.
Last.
When I had it right here, that's what
Last.
made me ask. Let's see it. Where is it? I saw
Page
it.
14.
It's in
The
the
last
application
bullet.
letter. Yeah, it's from the application letter that the developer presents to BPU when they make their request.
So this says, well,
Okay.
the project should generate a minimum of $500,000 in fees to BPU over 20 years.
Yes.
So if you divide $500,000 by 20,
25,000.
if you get the same thing, it's not a $500,000 annually, it's $500,000 over 20 years.
Years.
Maybe they did it by that.
So yeah, that's about 25 a year, 25,000 a year.
Our estimated annual revenue is actually 71,000. Yeah, so it'd be more.
Right.
It'd be more than
We're
that.
we're estimating higher, Tom, than what they did.
Yeah,
And ours is based off electric and water usage, based on what we are calculating based on their,
Mhm.
in our engineering design.
Right. We just use basic numbers from what, like, projects close to that type of how the bills and everything that we generate for projects that are close to that. So we look at actual bills to determine the electric and water.
so we're confident or fairly confident with our figures as opposed to their figures. Is that
Yeah.
what
Yes.
Our figures we're calculating a higher annual benefit than they did.
I'm?
If you do the 250 divided by the 71,000, it's actually 3.5 years. Payback. That 4.3 looks like it's based on the 300K ask,
Yeah.
but if you do
Yeah.
if they award the 250, it comes down to 3.5. If they, and
In my recommendation, I based it off of what they asked for.
2.8.
But what I've also put in there, and I didn't put it in both of them, and the other one is the board has 500,000 total.
Right.
So if you try to meet what both of them are asking, now you're exceeding the budget total. So the best thing to do is to lower it to some amount that the board can agree to if that's what the board selects
Yeah.
to do.
Right.
So
you
you're,
can fund both of them.
your ROI on a $200,000 award is 2.8 years.
Right.
On the 250 is 3.5.
And most of the time, we base it on what they ask. So they asked for 300,000. So that's why, and then Bill, like he said, he looked at how much is actually available in the fund. And we got 2 projects, and based on what's asking, and then the payback and that kind of stuff, then you just come up with a suggested, that's just
Yeah.
a suggested amount.
Do we know, are there any
Yeah.
other projects in the works? Are there any other projects in the works for this year?
Cottages, the other one we have.
This was just these two, Todd.
Okay.
And also, along that line, do we have a precedent that, for this sort of capital offset that has yielded the kind of anticipated return, either the 4-year or even the 20-year? Is there some precedent, or I'm sure there may be many, but anything that almost directly parallels what's anticipated here?
Well, so that's the conversation I was gonna put before the board, because in this application, we're actually listing more and showing what that return on investment is. And it could vary depending on what projects, and in this particular case, based on their request, it was 4.3 years based on the 300,000. The other one is much shorter. So, and I don't know where the board is or where you sit in terms of how you want to view these things in terms of what those break-even points are. I would say that anytime that we spend dollars to help develop parts of the inner city, it's going to be more expensive, and that return on investment is going to be longer than what you're going to see in the other projects, mainly out around Village West, where people are going to occupy that quicker, and those dollars will come back into BPU quicker. So it's really up to the board on how you want to look at this, and what type of break-even point do you want to look at. I would suggest, maybe looking at it different, because those numbers will be different between what you see in an urban core trying to rebound versus something that's still going fairly well out west.
And I know they do
Well,
ask if there was a precedent. I just wanted to mention that each year there is a different board committee. So they actually review. So on past applications, it was dependent on who was on the board at that time. So, and review the application. So it's strictly a board's decision after reviewing the information for you guys to decide where you want to land as far as what you want to approve or not to approve. So it's not really a precedent, just depending on who the board is at the time that's voting on whatever economic development proposal that comes up.
But the
And I
board can make decisions on what and how they want these things to, if you want to look at a return on investment being X years or Y years, I mean, that's right there within your approval.
Well, if I may just add my appreciation to both of you for the insight of what, has previously happened. And certainly I want to be consonant, me personally, just one of the members of the board, consonant with what previous contributions that our citizen-owned municipal utility does to enhance every part of our service area by our contributions. I mean, I've had this discussion yesterday with somebody about the United Way and what we do in terms of charitable eleemosynary contributions and whether or not those should be extracted and how they should be made. But that's another topic for another time. As to this, whatever would be economically developing of the surrounding area. And to my mind, I'm not sure what residential housing does in certain areas to enhance inner city or out west, anywhere. It does contribute in some means. And I'm just anxious to see whatever we do here, recoup the initial investment, and secondly, add to the initial, that being the site, in this case, the Y-lofts, and maybe what's, around the Y-lofts to enhance the area. What other, ancillary development there might be that may too come back to the utility by an enhanced use. I think catty corner from over there is a place called the Kansan. It was the old Kansas City, Kansas newspaper building that's had fits and starts. Would the Y-lofts enhance some with our contribution to it, enhance other opportunities for the utility in the surrounding community, or what else comes with it? So anyway, and I appreciate the dialogue and knowing what previous incarnations of board philosophy would have done for projects like this. Just thought I'd throw that 2 cents in terms of kind of my perspective. Thank you.
This developer, were they the ones that did the Boulevard lofts there at 800 Washington Boulevard?
Yes.
Okay. Did we have any problems with that project?
COVID, but
It was slow to
Slow,
complete,
yeah.
just like this project,
yeah,
but it did get completed.
And what was our contribution to the Boulevard lofts? Do you remember?
250.
250,000.
I thought it was
yeah,
250.
it wasn't too, okay.
And are we seeing a return on that?
Teresa, you guys.
On, yeah, we have, I think they're just about completed, occupancy.
Have you verified usage on it?
No, not yet. I mean, we just paid them a couple of months ago. So we wait about 6 months or so. So, but they're almost complete occupancy at that location.
So in the policy, Tom, there's a period of time where we go back and verify, I think it's 1 year out.
Mhm.
We'll go out and verify and meter, look at the metering information to make sure that, that they're hitting the targets that were established within their application and what they agreed to do.
And did we check to make sure that they had it, in fact, installed all electric?
Yes, that's what Carlos does. You inspect it?
Yes, and they have.
That is a new requirement in the policy now. They have to be all electric.
Do you want what do we, from us as a committee, do you want our,
But what you do is we ask you to review it and then this will go to the full board. After the committee reviews, then it goes to the full board for a vote.
Do you
And-
have it? Do you have any concerns before we get to the full board, or any recommended things that you want to see before we get there?
Rose, David?
I mean, I
Um,
think to the extent these go to the full board, I'd like to see them in a work session before we go to a full vote.
Right. We will.
Now, do we as a committee, do we make a recommendation to the full board, or do we? Or what's our function in this process?
Tom, that was my questions about these committee assignments. So I would say normally a committee would make a recommendation to the board. Otherwise, I guess I would question the function of a committee, so.
That's kind of where I was coming from, and wondering whether we needed to make, as a committee, make a recommendation.
But if you're gonna have a workshop, I guess you can. Yeah, I don't know.
If they-
What is the
Just
timetable? What is the time? Yeah.
I think they need to make recommendations in it.
What is the timetable
have
that they want to
workshop.
hear something back?
I'm sorry.
Timetable.
timetable for the,
Response from the board.
Yeah, the response, have they given some indication? I mean, I know it's been some time as to when the developer would want to take this into account from us.
so what is our response time or the board's response
what-
time to, on these?
Yeah,
What's the
for this one,
expectation?
for the Y-Lofts, has the developer given an idea as to where they are in the process for making various determinations based on what the utility can and will do?
When I send out the original packet, we normally say 6 to 8 weeks is normally the timeline or the turnaround for these. And that's just part of the policy and how we've had it written up.
So we're past
We're
that
past
time, David.
Okay, okay.
As in reading their application or this application, it appeared that our cost for the added infrastructure or whatever for this development was like 35,000, a little over $35,000, and that they had already paid that. Is that correct?
I think they did, yes, because like I said, like Bill stated, this was started back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And when I
So-
got the information back from electric and water engineering, they said those were the costs that had already been paid.
Okay. So is that what the cost was for the added infrastructure or for our, was the 35,000? And if that's the case, where's the additional, $265,000 that they're asking for? What's that, gonna be used for?
I'm sorry, 265,000, so they want 300? I thought.
That's what their original request was, 300,000.
Okay, I
doesn't-
only saw the 200. Okay, all right, fine, thanks.
That's it. To assist with infrastructure development and renovations of the historical building. That's what their request was. I mean, if you want me to ask for additional,
It's just not for us to cover our costs.
yeah, it's not.
Or do you know where they're at in their occupancy?
No, I can check that. No, I don't.
According to the website, they have a little over 30 units still left, so they've got up.
Okay, they're at about 15. Out of 44, so what is it? And it looked like they just started in what did they say? What did April? They just started in April. As far as, application process was started in April.
So Rose, that's what I was saying earlier about, when we make these investments, the ROI is gonna be longer for stuff like this, because it's gonna take time. Normally, those apartments out west, when they open, they may have somewhere close, it may be full occupancy in no time, based on, demand for certain parts of town versus others.
Yeah, April, it's almost the end of June, so it's almost July. They've got 44 units there, and in their letter to us, and this was pre-pandemic, so I can't imagine that the numbers are that far off anymore. It says that they have some sort of a market study that shows the need for 7,000 of these. Like, I would have expected all 44 to be filled by now based on that.
These are all senior living.
It's just all senior living. So. It's a different market. That they're
Right, but
targeting.
they're saying that they have a market study that shows the need for over 7,000 affordable senior housing units in Wyandotte County, and we're at 15 in a couple of months. I mean, I understand they just opened in April, but if there's folks clamoring for this, why don't they have I don't know what's wrong with the picture. Do we have scratch it, because I think if we had it, you would have provided it. Can we get what their pricing structure is for these units at this point?
The pricing structure is on page 7. It says, 1 bedroom, they have 27 units and they're going between 410 to 920 a month. They have, 2 bedrooms, 15 units, and they're going between 480 to 1230 a month. And then the studios are 735. It's only 2 studios.
Okay, and these are current numbers, right, Patrice?
I'm sorry.
These are current numbers?
Yeah, yeah,
That's what it showed.
that shows online, yeah. It is what they are advertising online.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Well, I don't expect anyone to know this, and it's not a part of this presentation, but I'd be interested in what ancillary facilities extra, like, did they open the old Y? They didn't open the old Y, so there's not a gym next door for the seniors. Or, I mean, I know that that had been renovated, but you know, when you're looking at marketing to fill the rest of these, the units, I mean, seniors want access, they want shuttle service, you know, at least somewhere, or they need something to do, even if it's just go to the gym and work out, because there's nothing around there. Maybe McDonald's is a block and a half away. So anyway,
So David, we really, and I don't think this developer or BPU can make any promises on what's going to be developed around that project. I mean, this is an application specifically for that project. If there is a different developer, or if the same developer decides to come back and present another project to BPU, it'll be specific to that project, that location. We've never have seen an economic development fund request to say that if you do this, we're promised to do all these other things. Now, part of what happens, what you see over the UG in a development agreement will probably look at something like that. You know, hey, if you do this, like Home Fields, for example, or some of those other large investments. So where they're looking at an initial project that they're going to start with, but they're going to expand over time across other pieces of land to develop other things out. But that's not something that we deal with here on these type of requests.
I understand. I was just thinking out loud and just musing what was happening in there. I understand it's not a part of our direct consideration today.
I would suggest that because of the number of units, the small number, I would say, as opposed to like the Boulevard Lofts and the other new ones, that the 300,000 was a large ask, and I think that maybe 200,000 is also probably a little large for the size of the project. That perhaps we would consider. They paid $35,000 and already for the infrastructure, and they another 65,000 or so for whatever that we might recommend, maybe a $100,000 fund grant.
Okay. And we're okay with that, Tom, if that's where you want to go, if the rest of the committee's there with you.
I don't have a clue where they're at. So I just throw that out there and they can cuss it and discuss it and see where we're at. So.
I can get on board with that, Tom, with 100,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and I certainly will. I certainly think so as well. I mean, I think we should at least make some gesture toward anything that is being, utility wide is being developed. And I know we've got another one to consider. I want to hear, how we move through that discussion out west when we go through, but I would not want us to get into a regional disparity for economic development based on geography, but certainly if if it's the consensus of this subcommittee for 100,000, then I'm certainly supportive.
All right.
I
So we
think
got.
Go ahead,
Tom.
Bill.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I was just gonna comment that, I think it's worthy that, the fact that they are redoing the historic, MCA and that it didn't have to be destroyed and I think that, that we should have some sort of, contribution and and I think if sounds like we can agree to do the $100,000 figure, so you might want to move forward with that.
Okay.
Well,
That's
full
all.
disclosure. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bill.
No, go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, full disclosure, since I did not make the initial one, but I learned to swim as a boy at that Y, and I have a lot of historic ties to that building and knew it well, and glad to see that it too was not destroyed. And I would make an impartial motion based on the recommendation that we do refer $100,000 request to support what's been called the Y lofts to our full committee or to a work session. I don't know. I could amend the emotion. Is it to a work session, or would it be or before the full board, or is it to?
It's
what
just
is
a
gonna be
recommendation. Oh, that's a recommendation by this committee.
Okay. All right. I would make that motion then for the 100,000
You,
to be forwarded.
David, I don't think there is a motion required. It's just general consensus of where all three of you are.
And then when the full
Okay.
board meet, then you can just bring up your recommendation at that time. But this is to be considered by the full board, but you can bring your recommendations when we
Okay, thank
meet.
you.
So.
Well, I'm good. Okay, I'm good.
So I'm hearing 100,000 from all three committee members, and we'll take that one forward.
Yeah, can I hang on a second? Not that I'm gonna change my part of the consensus, but in looking at these leasing rates, there's a really big gap. I mean, is this income based?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Did you hear me, Rose? Yes.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
I
okay.
do. I'm sorry. I'm just,
Yes, it is.
What's the question exactly?
Income based. Rental. Yeah.
And FYI, while you're doing, I think Boulevard Lofts over on Washington has an income-based proponent too,
They
which is
do.
about 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
and
They're
do
new
we
and
know
pretty.
if
They're
their
free.
leasing rates are comparable? I know it's not exclusively a senior living facility, but
And Rose, to be honest, I mean, I was struggling with the why, but I was also looking at what the board decided to do with the Boulevard Loss too. And that was kind of where I was kind of trying to push part of my recommendation. But also, I was also looking at going a little bit lower, because I think I said 200,000. Yeah, as a recommendation.
And also, if you all want, in the past, the board has asked the developers to come to the regular board meeting to answer questions, give presentation and answer questions, and that's something we can have them come before the board if you would like.
Use the price on the boulevard if you.
And Rob pulled up some information, if you all can see it on Boulevard Laws.
he's
Yeah,
not
cover it up.
sharing it yet.
Got it covered up, Rob. So this is cheaper because it is senior. than
Oh, yeah. Yes.
than the Boulevard Laws.
They're saying that they don't have any available.
Availability, but it's brand new.
Okay,
So
hang
you-
on, hold on, go back up. Just leave it on the rates for a second.
So this is actually their, for nearby apartments,
Oh,
not these
got
apartments.
it.
Just
So
saw
they
that.
don't have their own.
Yeah, so the only ones, so they're not showing their prices for theirs.
It is if you go to their site.
Oh, they're there. Oh, no, that's Unity, West Side.
If you go directly to Y Lofts,
Yeah, the Wyloff ones, I
They
can't
were,
get there.
yeah, they were talking about Boulevard.
or
They were asking about.
Trying to
Boulevard.
compare it to Boulevard.
These are the Wyloff ones.
That, I guess, looked like, well, I guess we don't know with Boulevard Lofts, because that was nearby, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's on 9th Street, 9th and Washington Boulevard, between
Right.
8th and 9th on Washington.
they have 50 units.
They don't,
Yeah.
they're
Yes.
full. They're full.
Yes,
Okay,
You have any other thoughts, Rose, on the Y?
no, I don't think so. All right now,
Tom, David,
no, I'm good. What we
I am
said.
too. This is not the last bite at the apple for consideration. We just broaden the consideration with others. So I'm fine.
okay. The next project.
Yeah,
So we'll take the $100,000 recommendation back to the board when we meet.
thank you.
Thanks.
so the next one is cottages at Village West. And this is off of 100 and well, it's off of State Avenue and Delaware Parkway. And they submitted a request for 350,000 to assist with electric infrastructure and development costs for the property and the construction. That's 231 units of new construction housing rental. It's kind of a little different concept as far as these are gonna be a bill for rent community. And or kind of single family housing type a setup. So that's what makes them a little bit different. And I don't know what other information, mostly everything is on page 6 as far as what they're asking. They have their the unit mix, what they're gonna have out there. And based on our recommendations, I think this one was support 250,000 was based on after we reviewed it and the general manager reviewed it. We recommended 250,000.
So there are $350,000 requests at a break-even point of 9 months. Now that's 9 months being
Right.
fully filled. So I mean, they won't be fully occupied on day one, but just assuming that be the case, it would be a 9 month. So 250 will certainly take it less than that. They didn't do the math on that. I'm just basically putting in what it is based on their request.
When are they projected to complete these? I didn't see it in there. I may have missed it in the presentation. And I apologize.
I think they were talking about breaking ground or getting started by July 1, but I don't know how long it takes to build out 230 some units and do all that work, but it probably a year or so down the line or more.
You can definitely ask, but,
Where is State Avenue? There's no map, is there?
So the application said Delaware and State, which runs parallel with each other. So I didn't. It's,
It looked to be just to the east of where they're putting in the American Royal and to the
Yeah.
south
Yeah.
of the apartment buildings that are in
Yeah.
there now.
yeah, they submitted a map.
yeah, it'd be just
Oh,
to
I
the
see
east of
it
the
now,
American
okay.
Royal, Tom. I don't know if you know Steve Allison or not. It's his family property. His family owned a lot of property out there around the existing apartments and American Royal. There's some, I think, an Indian Nation owned part of the land out there, which sold to the American Royal. I think Steve Allison's family sold part of their property to him, but they still retain ownership in a lot of that land.
So they're not the developers on this, right? Or are they? Is
Family,
Allison's family the developers on this as well, or were they just the landowner?
It's listed under a different name.
it's under the, it's, Thomas Regional Partner of CPC Land Acquisition Company.
Which is out of Dallas.
Yep, they're out of Dallas.
Steve Allison lives in Boston. I'm not sure where the rest of his family lives. And he has been calling me, asking about the timing of some of that. So I told him we're having meetings and I don't know where the board is. There were some concerns about how he wanted to connect his water service out there. I think we worked through all of those concerns and we're comfortable, but where we are, I think Jeremy's here. He can speak to part of that too.
Yeah, they wanted to install a smaller service, and they wanted to, basically they're jamming everything in a real small amount of right of way. So what we ended up doing is going with the right size service, and it's gonna be like a wholesale meter, basically, and then they take it and have to maintain it inside the community, much like an apartment complex or whatever. In fact, I think, Patrice, that's what they've been calling it, is like a horizontal apartments. But then the other thing they had to get with respect to the water was they had to get I guess forbearance, for lack of a better term, to not have fire suppression, which also was gonna require a larger water service, but they've resolved all those issues with the city and with BPU Water.
In their proposal or in the application, it said that the cost to BPU to extend the utilities, both water and electric, was gonna be combined like $730,000, give or take. And they're asking, what, basically half of that. So they would pay, they're gonna pay, okay, $730 some thousand will be charged to them for this extension of the utilities. Is that correct?
Yeah, the electric is 337,000 and the water was 395, so the total is 732,626. Those
Okay.
were the estimates for the infrastructure.
Are we doing other infrastructure out there for like the American Royal and that, or do we have the infrastructure in place, or is this new infrastructure that we're gonna have to build, or what?
So the American Royal is now currently building the infrastructure out there. We went back and forth with them on how that was gonna be built. I mean, our policy speaks, directly to how that needs to be built out. They were asking for an agreement to do something different by running another main instead of tapping existing mains that's out there in front of the American Road. They wanted to build another one and then have other potential future developers pay them back and wanted BPU to be party to that. So we told them that they have to follow the rules and the policies we currently have in place. They agreed to that.
So the cost, the cost to us just for this project is the 732,000. And they're asking for some relief of that in the amount of 350, and it's up to us to determine what, if any, that we're going to allow. That's where I'm hearing.
Yeah, the general manager made a recommendation of 250.
Okay.
And Tom, in almost every subdivision that's been built out there, every developer almost, not all of them, but the majority of them has come back and looked at, here's the cost of running water service under their property, and they've asked for some type of more consideration in offsetting some of that cost. And for almost every development subdivision out there, we've done that, so over the years.
I know. And at one point in time, we had a lot of stranded infrastructure too.
Yeah.
Because we did do that. Is this company, do we know, are they financially stable and viable?
Yeah,
Yes, they are. And
But the stranded infrastructure was
residential.
BPU also having employees out there installing a lot, and we've also changed our policy. So we're in much better shape in terms of not having stranded infrastructure today like we used to because of the policy changes and how we're operating the business differently today than what we were doing 20 years ago.
Okay. They listed as other sources of assistance, IRBs, and a predictable pilot for the next 10 years. Can you tell me what a predictable pilot is?
I have no idea. That's from, I think, they're trying to add UG, it's through the unified government making a discount on their pilot, from what I understand.
It's not the same pilot as our pilot.
Yeah.
Casey, do you
So
know?
So the predictable pilot is not our pilot, it's something else? Is that?
It's a pilot. I don't know how the calculation works, but it's a pilot that developers have to pay
To the unified
to
government.
the unified government.
I don't know, but I can find out for you guys.
There you go. That Casey's on there.
Yeah, and that's not untypical. There's a lot of cities, when they get into development agreements, there's a pilot on bonds, revenue bonds, anything, those things on that line that will be different than the pilot assessed against BPU revenue. This would be totally different.
If they were not to get this grant or this fund request, are they prepared to move forward with the project, or would this scrap it?
No, they're gonna move forward.
They will.
They'll move forward on it.
Rose, David, any thoughts?
I've got and I don't know if anybody here knows the answer, but in their letter, they said the project will provide a significant new source of revenue through property taxes for the local government. Does anybody know what the interplay between property taxes and a predictable pilot is? Are those different things? Because a pilot, I think we all know what that means and what it stands for.
Yeah.
I think Casey said she was gonna find out from the unified government standpoint on when they issue IRBs and if that pilot is associated with the IRB or if it's something different.
Okay, I'll research that and I will get back to you.
Thanks, Casey.
Yep.
So my question is a little different. I know the board took policy for infrastructure build out for connections east of 635 some time ago. I didn't ask that question about the Y lofts, made the assumption that it would have to be renovated. So this is new out there in conjunction with other development. But I guess that there's always some supplement or some assistance that we yield to new development that the utility kind of writes off or donates. In this case, it would be for the infrastructure or for the connections. Is that a fair assumption to make by way of parallel?
David, can you repeat part of that?
So I didn't ask this question about the Y lofts. I know that previously the board had made a decision that development east of 635, primarily with land bank properties, which of course Y lofts was not, but to assist with connections for infrastructure development or redevelopment. And I think that by and large makes sense. So we're now with this proposal for the cottages, looking at basically helping with the build out for new construction. I mean, for the new infrastructure. Is that fair?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So the east of 635 and land bank is all built on those specific projects, and it is only for single family and duplex.
And it's the temporary, temp power fee and the system development fees on the water.
Right.
Because that infrastructure is already there mostly.
Right. And
So it's not, those are the fees that we're talking about that are waived that for those projects east of 635. So I think the temp is like $500.
Yeah.
System development fee about $1,200. So, I mean, those are the fees that are waived for the land bank properties east of 635.
this property is, like I said, is similar to all the other residential subdivisions where we didn't have any infrastructure there and the developer had to run all the infrastructure or pay for it. So it's very consistent with that, but I don't remember that the apartment, the Village West apartments, or the ones next to that, phase 1, phase 2, or the phase 3 that's being built, if they requested any assistance.
No, they did not.
They did not,
No.
so, I mean, you got 2, 3 phases of apartments out there that didn't ask for the board or any money. This one is, but you know, it's, I guess whatever the board's decision is on this property, it is a quick pay turnaround. Probably 6 months payback or so if you go with the 250. But it's also, I would say I would like for the board to think about how you want to fund these type projects when they come up, because pretty much all the subdivisions were funded in some way. Now, with the old policies, like Tom said, we were really extending ourselves way beyond what we're doing today. But we still supported all of those through an economic development fund and then additional monies and things that BPU financed to build out all those subdivisions out there. So as we go forward, if the board wants to continue to do that, okay, what type of payback should you know, what you want to look like? That'll make it easier for us to even know how to advance any of these applications to you. If we kind of know more about what the board's looking for, what you will approve and what you may have heartburn around.
So, and I'm sure that these are all market, units. It's not a subsidized, they're all market,
They're all,
market rate.
it's all market, yes.
Yeah.
Like Patrice said earlier, I mean, this committee and the whole board is gonna be made up differently over time. You know, I think just like our policies, you know, whatever the board decides to do going forward, future boards can either say, okay, we will accept those actions of previous boards. You may want to tweak some of it. But, you know, I think here, I'm just kind of following the same things that previous boards have done and how they've handled these new projects if they come up out west. That don't necessarily mean you have to follow that yourself. It's up to you really what you want to decide today.
And these are family units. I mean, they're not senior or anything, but they're
They're
large enough to
Single
accommodate.
family.
they're single family units, yes.
Okay. Well, there may be, but, and you said it's an accelerated, anticipated ROI, return on whatever, that is going to go rather more quickly than other parts. Well, yeah, I certainly see. Look, this is Rose and Tom. This is their neighborhood and their school district and everything. And I won't be the one to dash any cold water on it. I think it's a standalone project that doesn't necessarily need supplemental assistance, that should make its own and do well. The developer would have to maybe expand by a few months, if not a year or so, what its rate of return is going to be if the utility does not assist. But it's their area. It's more Tom and Rose's, neck of the woods. So I'll let them make the call for what it is. I just don't see the need.
Yeah, and on this one, thank you, David. Not because it's my neck of the woods. I'm really trying to wrap my head around, particularly what you just told me about Village West, like why we would do this, right? I mean, we made a similar decision last year or the year before, if I recall, for the for-profit apartments that were going to go down by the riverfront or whatever it was. And this is, again, I mean, I'm trying to look at what's the overall benefit, the community benefit. I don't know what it is. So
Well, and
I guess I would recommend at this point, my recommendation is not to move this forward, this particular proposal, not to move it forward to the full board yet.
You can't do that.
Can we do that or not?
It has to
well,
be
by
moved-
policy, I think you have
has
to
to be
move it
moved
forward.
It has to be moved forward. But you can, in your discussion with the other full board, you can make your recommendations, but it has to be moved forward to the full board.
Okay, cool.
So we're not making any motions
No.
here. So, right. Okay.
Not yet.
All right. So
Not
that's to
yet.
be moved forward. But I thought they said not at all, but whatever,
So
I'm
can,
guessing, go ahead.
Tom, I was gonna say you can move it forward with the recommendation.
Right.
With no recommendation.
Or recommendation to do nothing.
Yeah. Okay,
But this, just the process is it has to go before the full board.
okay.
All the,
As
all
I understand it, we've got those four apartment complexes that have gone in out west. The 237 lofts, which is there by the Resident Inn and they're on Parallel, and then the Village West development, and then the new one that's going in. And those apartment complexes did not seek any economic development assistance from the BPU. This one is different. This one is somewhat different in the fact that it's not apartments, and they don't have just like one line or one thing going into the development, but it's because they've got 230 standalone or 140 some standalone, that's where the additional expense comes in.
Yeah,
because
because
they've got,
think of them as duplexes, Tom, and then look at all the service lines that's gotta be run to each one.
Mhm. So that's what makes it more expensive than like an apartment complex. Or the
It
law,
makes it more expensive than an apartment complex, on kind of a greenfield development.
That's the same with electric too. They gotta run,
Sorry.
same with the electric, they've got to
Yep.
run electric service to
Right,
each
yeah,
building instead of
yeah, they're,
60 units in one building, they're gonna run
right,
30 services to 60 units.
right. So, yeah, so Jeremy said, same with electric, they gotta run additional electric and water services to all buildings, so that's where their cost is gonna go up.
Okay.
Whereas an apartment building, we'd run a feed, there'd be gang meter boxes put on it, but we run one service line in
And
and
water.
one water line in for the entire building.
well, I could see that, you know, with the increase in the cost and all that, and that cost that we estimate at $730 some thousand, that perhaps, you know, as we have done with other subdivisions and the like, that we might subsidize that a little bit, but I would not think that 350,000 or even 300 or, you know, possibly, you know, like even down to like, you know, 200,000 to help with the higher costs. But I also could also understand where if they're going to go ahead and proceed, whether they get anything or any award or not, that they might, you know, everybody's going to ask for something, that's for sure. Because if you don't ask, you don't get it. But you know, I don't know. I'm kind of torn between helping them somewhat on that extra cost and just saying, hey, good luck and we hope you're successful.
So Tom, are you at 200 or?
I would be at 200. I would approve. I would, you know, go with 200 of the 732,000 that they have in a cost to run the utility infrastructure.
Rose, David?
Well, I need to understand why, you know, when the others had no, I mean, the others that are in the same area had no assistance whatsoever. If I understand, is that correct? This would be the first in the
Yeah.
area to have some, but the other, is it three? Different complexes or four have had no assistance?
Out there, it's
Yeah.
several of them coming up out there. They didn't go through the Economic Development Fund, and most of them made application to our energy, our heat, our rebate program. So if they didn't get the Economic Development Fund, they did get incentives for the electric heat application.
And
Did you hear
so
that?
I did. So the cottages still make application through that as well? Would they be able to make application through that as well?
You get one or the other. If you don't get the Economic Development Fund, then if they install all electric heat, then they qualify for the electric heat incentive program.
And how much would that be?
Yeah,
Well, it
that's
depends on
my
the
very
size.
question.
It depends on the size of the heat pump. It depends on the size of the electric heating units that are installed. The minimum is gonna be $500
Per unit?
per unit. Yeah, and then, well, 500 plus, about $750 per unit, because they'll have an electric hot water tank as well, so.
So 750 per unit. And we're talking, how many units are we talking about? 231.
31.
So I don't have a computer. I don't have a calculator.
250.
So that'd be like 200.
That's 100,
200.
about 173.
About 175,000.
Okay. So we can give them a economic grant under out of the Economic Development Fund of $270,000, $170,000, or they can apply through the other program and get 270,000 refund.
Just say
for-
275, Tom, around,
Okay,
It's
270.
175.
I mean, 175, sorry. 75. So you want to
It just,
go,
I guess it sounds to me like we just need to do, which way do we want to push them? Or do we want to do it one way, or what's the easiest for us?
Well, and don't we get a residual benefit if they're all electric that goes well beyond the initial? I mean, if they maintain that, the utility will recognize the benefit of providing services well beyond the initial period.
so David, in both of these situations, you have to be all electric.
Yeah,
So it don't matter which way they go. It's 175,000 for
if you
the,
pay on the heating equipment, or is 200,000 out of the fund. And neither one of them are paid until the project is complete and the installations have been verified, so it's no upfront money. Everything has to be completed and inspected before we even make payment.
Rose?
Rose, you're muted.
It doesn't matter. It's 6 1 hand after.
Rose, can you still hear us?
Yes.
You're muted.
Boy.
David, can you hear us? Tom, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
I can. This is David. I can.
Rose said, apologies, I do need to drop. You have my thoughts.
Oh, well, I guess her thought was no.
Tom, are you at 175 or 200?
Oh,
I mean, I would give them a little bit extra to go with the 200. That'd just be my thoughts on it.
Right.
To help
David,
with
are you there as well?
I'd like for them to make application and go through the process. If they're all electric, it incentivizes, the full participation with our utility. And it's a good precedent for other developments to follow. They would look at, at their projections and see that that's a part of what we do, since the city owns our own utility and we do make that service available. It's a great way to add to their own bottom lines of the developers if they take advantage of our program and utilize it and get the rebate.
So you'd rather for them to go, either giving them money through this application, they have to be all electric. If they go through the other application with the heat pump program and stuff, they still have to be all electric. So it don't matter which way they go, if they're gonna be all electric, they're gonna ask for the other money and then it's gonna be granted that way. So it's just whether the board want to give it to them through this fund or just make them go through the other.
And I don't know which is more advantageous for us in terms of which pool it dips from, the one that's talking about the 200 or the one that's talking about the rebate for the 175. which
Don't
would
have
be
to.
more advantageous to us, our bottom line at the utility.
We do
So,
advertise
and
a heat pump over 3 years
Okay.
versus whenever they're done, we'd outlay it all at once.
You want to say,
The only difference, if we go with the heat pump, our, whatever we issue to them from a financial side of the house, you can expense it over 3 years. If we do the economic development, we would just pay it out. I mean, I guess it goes into, trying to think, it's the same, no matter
That's
what.
what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, David. It's one way or the other.
all right.
So where you at?
I don't care, whichever recommendation. Well, we're not really making, well, we're making a recommendation to move forward.
Yeah, it's just making sure that the committee is aligned with what you're gonna recommend going to the full board with. So I've got Tom at 200, David at 200, Rose, she had to leave, so that's or 0. So then, that's 2 out of 3. We'll take that to the full board. And it's really up to the rest of the whole board to decide what they want to do. Or what you
Right.
guys want to do as a full board.
So.
And there has been projects in the past where the committee was split, 2 were in favor of doing something, 1 was opposed. And the whole board decided what they want to do. So this is not the first time for that either.
And I'm safe in saying that since it's been represented to me, that it's 6 one way, half dozen the other, as between the draw for the 175 or the draw for the 200, that I'm ambivalent as to which one it goes to from that.
Okay,
So what's the follow-up? Are they gonna,
Yeah.
is this going to workshop?
yep, this got to go to workshop. So Tom, I'll work with you on a workshop.
Okay,
And we got the other IRP going forward too, so we'll, I don't know that the next meeting has to be, it's 2 hours. I gotta go back and look at that IRP schedule. But I'll talk to you before we, as we're putting the next agenda together, and then see what you're comfortable with.
And
okay,
these packets will go out this week to all of you.
Yep.
okay.
Hey, Rose dropped, right?
She's still connected, but she said that she had to drop, so.
Okay. How much time do we have left?
It is 3:15, so you have 15 minutes.
Okay, so Tom, and David and Rose, if you can hear. Kansas City, Kansas Community College, the board approved a $250,000 grant. Because of all for them, based on the downtown college.
Yeah.
That was approved, and recently, Dr. Mosier has told me that they cannot meet that requirement of being all electric. I think yesterday or today, I received an email from him requesting about that amount and waiving fees for construction purposes, knowing that the economic development dollars will be pulled from them. So if you guys can think about that, I'll take that to the full board too and ask if you want to move those dollars from economic development to support them in this other effort, or how do you want me to answer that question he's got in front of me?
Okay.
Rose, and I see you're back. I don't know if you heard all that or not.
I did not. I apologize. I did not. And I can go over it with you, Bill, afterwards. I don't want to hold up the group.
Okay, okay. It's just information, and I'll call you and go through it with you.
Okay.
But, Tom, there's no decision. David, there's no decision. This would be something the whole board needs to look at and listen to and decide what they want to do. you know, we can do a budget transfer, I guess, if we're gonna support that. So,
Okay, that's on the community college portion, right?
yeah, it's on the community college portion.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Anything else? please?
Nope.
That's all we have.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks all.
Let me.
We need
point of-
to, go ahead.
Point of information, just in terms of different listing of the board members on the agenda, different places, just by way of update, if someone takes it how the agenda is listed, just for the point of information. If we can. Point of
Can you-
reference.
Can you repeat what you're saying, David? Are you asking for
Okay,
another?
Our agenda lists, Tom Groneman and Rose is board VP and David Haley. And I didn't know if, I mean, it's
Oh.
not, but just in terms of the criterion that's listed, however is listed for the
Yeah.
future, not for this one.
That's okay. That's okay. We'll get it corrected.
Yeah, sorry. I was using the last agenda and missed that. Sorry.
Well, if
Well,
we're gonna
and-
do that, can we take the E out of Mulvaney, please?
Sure will.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
All good.
And it may want to make Mr. Groneman the president, since we're
Yes.
listing titles, since there's titles listed.
Right. So everybody in the room, I think, has got the board agendas, the board committees. Make sure we look at this and that.
Yep.
Tom, there was an open spot since we're on that topic, for one of the UG standing committees. Did we make any decision on that? Or are we just gonna leave that vacant on BP side?
What's, Kadia, Irene, whatever, the chief
Irene
of staff.
Castillo. Yeah.
She was gonna call me back, and touch base. I talked to David. David said that he wasn't interested, in doing it. So I guess by default, that would fall back to me. So I think that probably we should have some sort of presence on those boards and so I'll probably go ahead and when she calls back, let her know that I will accept, the appointment.
If you can make that official with them, I'll update the committee assignments and send that back out.
I was waiting, she was supposed to call me back, but that's been 2 or 3 weeks ago, so I haven't heard anything, so. But I will, unless you've changed your mind and you want to be on the, Public Works and Safety.
No, thank you, Mr. President. I did enjoy being on economic development, but I think our own Mr. Wakes, Stevie Wakes, is doing well on that. And that was probably more my my wheelhouse. So, but the Public Safety Committee I wouldn't bring much to the table on that. So thank you for the offer, but I decline.
Okay, so
All right, Tom,
That-
just let us know, Tom, when you're starting. We'll update our information.
okay, I will.
All right, thank you.
right, thank
It's
you
not,
all.
it's not that funny.
Well,
You can see her laughing.
Hear you laughing.
And Mr. President, if I can hasten before we leave, thanking everyone that's there in the boardroom or in the supplemental boardroom, but especially I thank Robert Camp and Jason for helping me to link on. I've had some problems with Zoom, and were it not for their diligence, I would not be able to have joined you in helping get my equipment upgraded. So thank you, Robert Camp, and Jason and IT for helping to make that happen. Just wanted to add that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah. I would entertain a motion to adjourn this, committee meeting.
Rose,
So
so
moved.
moved.
Second, David.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Groneman,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Haley.
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul.
Yes.
Thank you all.